Coming up next,
His Excellency, the Governor...
Governor Corbett delivers his first budget address to Pennsylvania lawmakers and proposes sweeping cuts across the board. Education at every level may be hard hit. College tuition may be on the rise.
We would obviously not put the full burden of this cut, were it to come at this level, on our students.
And the future of state programs that help businesses grow and prosper may be on the line. In this day and age, state government and the business community need to work together.
We can't survive without each other.
We're talking about Governor Corbett's budget proposal and what it means to all of us next.
This is Capital Connection from Pennsylvania Senate Democrats. Capital Connection, a look at Pennsylvania state government working today for the Commonwealth's future.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on our program. We all know that we're in the midst of tough economic times and we're all being forced to tighten our belts and watch what we spend. It's the same thing with state government. In his first budget address to the Pennsylvania legislature, Governor Corbett is proposing sweeping cuts. Public education at every level will see massive cuts if the governor has his way. The end result may be higher property taxes at the local level to pay for a wide array of public services being provided by county and local governments. And we're talking about Governor Corbett's proposed budget and what Senate Democrats are saying about it with State Senator Vincent Hughes, who represents parts of Philadelphia and Montgomery County in the Pennsylvania Senate. He serves in leadership as the Democratic chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Let's start with some agreement. You would agree that we've got a budget problem in Pennsylvania, correct?
Absolutely. There's no question that there does exist a budget problem. The numbers are ranging about a deficit of somewhere around $4 billion. This is not of the making of Pennsylvania citizens. This is strictly as a result of the stimulus money running out, as we knew it would. It was a 2-year program on the federal stimulus program. And it's a result of an economy that collapsed a couple of years ago and has not fully rebounded yet. So there clearly is a problem that we've all got to deal with.
But who's going to pay the bill? Who's going to take the hit, if you will? The governor says he will absolutely positively not raise taxes or fees.
Well, here's the problem. The way the governor built this budget, the architecture of this budget, was built on essentially the backs of working families. There is no shared sacrifice here. The governor has created a budget where there's about $1.1 or $1.2 billion in cuts to basic education. Which all that translates to is increases at your local property taxes. The governor has built a budget with about a 50% cut in higher education funding. So students at the 14 state system universities, Westchester, Cheney, Millersville, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, all the rest of them will get dramatic cuts in their funding and could potentially face, if you had to fill that hole of the 50% cut there, you have to have almost a $2,000 increase in their tuition. But there's also cuts at Penn State University, Temple University, Lincoln University, and University of Pittsburgh, also 50% cuts. So the budget has been built on the backs of working families. There's no shared sacrifice here because at the same time as the budget was cut dramatically in these areas and a number of other areas also, there's an additional expansion in growth and tax cuts for some of the wealthiest corporations in the Commonwealth. And once again, we choose not to get our fair share of fees from the Marcellus Shale industry. So we feel, again, it's no shared sacrifice here. It's built just on the backs of working families and also poor people, and it's really, really not fair.
Let me give you a what-if situation. What if I own my home? What if I'm retired? What if I live on a fixed income and obviously I'm in a public school district somewhere in Pennsylvania? What can I expect to see happen even though my children are long gone out of the public school system?
There will be an increase in your local property tax. Make no mistake about it. It's pretty much guaranteed. If as we're doing this interview, there's a host of news accounts from all across the Commonwealth about local school districts contemplating now where if this is going to be the cut from the state, then we're probably going to have to consider some kind of tax increase at the local level. Now, there'll be belt tightening. There'll be sacrifices made by teachers. There'll be sacrifices made by administrators. There'll be sacrifices made across the education system. But the whole cannot be fully filled with just tax cuts, with just cuts and sacrifices of that nature. There will be sacrifices made in the context of local property tax increases as a result of the state abandoning its investment in public education.
Well, the governor is calling for sweeping cuts across the board. He calls it a day of reckoning. Howard Ondick has more.
Governor Corbett stands before members of the Pennsylvania General Assembly to deliver his first budget address.
The day of reckoning has come. We, together, have work to do.
He says we need to share the pain during these tough economic times, but Senate Democrats say the pain will only be felt by those who can least handle it.
This budget is being balanced on the backs of working people, young people, children, and poor people.
Senate Democratic leader Jay Costa says the proposed cuts are deep and severe.
Well, we have significant concerns about this particular budget address in this particular environment at this time. We recognize that we have difficult economic times that we have to address with respect to a shortfall of $4 billion. But at the end of the day, we believe that this budget is being balanced on the backs of working men and women in this Commonwealth and on our children.
Governor Corbett is proposing a 50% cut in state funding to state-owned and state-related universities. If it happens, it will have a huge financial impact on students.
There is no shared sacrifice. It's a $1.1 billion cut in basic education funding. All that means is that local communities, hardworking families, and communities across the Commonwealth are going to be forced to have to raise their local property taxes.
So much of the sacrifice that he called for was from the most vulnerable people in our society and from the middle class. Just to give you one example, he called for a 50% cut in higher education funding, which will result in a 25 to 35% increase in tuition costs to people all across my district and all across Pennsylvania. That will literally close the door of the college for many people who could not afford such a cut.
$114 million could be cut from the Department of Community and Economic Development, money used to help businesses create and retain jobs.
How I'm looking at this budget, I'm going to work with the governor, I'm going to work with the Republican majorities in both houses if we deal with the main priority at hand, and that's job growth. If this budget, in the end, with these deep cuts, inhibits job growth, I'm going to have great concern about it. I'm going to fight over the next several weeks in the budget hearings as we debate this budget going into June. We have to make job growth the #1 priority.
The governor continues to insist that he will not propose or support an extraction fee for the Marcellus shale industry, even though every other state with Marcellus reserves does impose a fee on the companies.
I still believe we need to look at alternative revenues. The Marcellus shale industry is an industry that we're going to have for quite a while. Could create an economic boom for us. Need to work through that legislation, talk about how that creates jobs, translates into reduced taxes, create a fair tax for the industry, something they can live with, not scare them off.
The budget negotiations are underway, with lawmakers facing a June 30th deadline to pass a balanced state budget. I'm Howard Ondick reporting.
And as Howard just reported, by law, the budget must be passed and balanced by June 30th. You're watching Capital Connection from Pennsylvania Senate Democrats. We're talking about Governor Corbett's proposed 2011-2012 budget proposal with Senator Vincent Hughes of Philadelphia and Montgomery County. He serves as the Democratic chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Let's talk about the people that are going to be impacted. You talked about it just a moment ago. It's people that own homes, college students, retirees. Did any of these people cause this problem?
None of the budget crisis that we're in, the collapse of the economy that occurred in 2008 and 2009, which is where all of this is coming from. None of those individuals, none of these people that we're talking about here, working families, teachers, kids, senior citizens, average Pennsylvania working families, none of these individuals caused this economic collapse. This was caused by some shenanigans, if you will, by our friends on Wall Street and playing fast and loose with our money. And so the economy started to collapse around the world. But the average individual did not cause this problem. And they should not be asked to bear the sole responsibility of coming together with the solution.
Plus, there are so many people out there working families that can no longer meet their mortgages. We've seen a record number of foreclosures. Somebody lost their job through no means or no fault of their own. Now they're left.
Well, the governor is calling for an end of financial support, of new financial support for the HEMAP program, which is the program that helps families get through the foreclosure process.
Home Emergency Mortgage
Home Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program. Right. That's HEMAP, okay? That's a program that exists right now. If you're about to go into a foreclosure process, you can call that number, and immediately the foreclosure process will stop as folks begin to work out your situation. Well, right now, with foreclosures skyrocketing, you would figure you'd want to invest in a program like that. And we're not talking about a lot of money. We're talking about $5 million, maybe $10 million in a $27 billion budget. That really is not a lot of money to help out working families get through this. The governor said, no, we're not going to put any new dollars into that when we have a significant crisis. Working families, poor folks, students, again, did not cause this problem. There is no shared sacrifice in this governor's budget address. And don't get me start talking about the Marcellus Shale.
Oh, come on. Let's get you talking about it.
Well,
go for it.
Pennsylvania, and we've said this over and over and over again, Bill, there's got to be fairness in this. And there's got to be shared sacrifice in this. Pennsylvania has probably the largest reserve of shale, both Marcellus Shale and the one that they don't talk about, which if you drill deeper down, it's called the Utica Shale. It's probably the largest reserve of shale in the world, not just in the United States, but in the entire world, all right? And the folks who are doing the drilling, starting to get that natural gas out of that shale, they've been in Pennsylvania for a few years now. They've come in from Texas and Oklahoma and all around the country. Those companies are now owned by big oil, okay? They're not paying a dime, one dime in taxes to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Do they pay it in Texas?
They pay it in Texas, they pay it in Oklahoma, they pay it in Alaska, they pay it in West Virginia, they pay it everywhere else. And I can say to you, as I said when the governor made his budget address on March 8th, those guys are sitting in their corporate boardrooms and they're laughing all the way to the bank.
Literally.
Counting all the new money that they thought they were going to have to pay. When they set up their business model coming to Pennsylvania, they said, well, you know, guys, we're going to have to pay a few dollars to the state because that's just the right thing to do. But if we can beat it, we're going to try to beat it. Now, we're not calling for something that is out of the world. Our proposals have been pretty much fair and right in the middle of what other states are doing. But yet again, we're getting ready to go through another year where there'll be no tax on the Marcellus Shale industry. Now, keep in mind, no tax on those guys. Students going to college and families going to college will have to pay 50% more in tuition. No tax on that industry. The ending of the adult basic program, all right? No tax on that industry. Local property taxes get increased. No taxes on the big shale guys, all right? They're making money. Property taxes go up. It's not fair. It's not a shared sacrifice. Working families and children and students did not cause this problem.
Well, the big cuts are coming in education, as we said, in both public education and at the university level. As Don Rooney tells us, nobody seems to know what the impact will be.
The state-owned and related universities in Pennsylvania expected Governor Corbett to cut funding, but the 50% proposed cut is seen as potentially devastating, especially when you consider the number of students across Pennsylvania that may be affected.
Today, we collectively educate 150,000 Pennsylvania citizens, the largest slice of Pennsylvania students of any sector. We do that maintaining a significant differential between in-state and out-of-state tuition, and we do it maintaining an even more significant differential between our in-state tuition and the tuition that is charged by our private peers.
With that kind of a cut, there's no question that working families will have to dig deeper into their pockets to send their children to college.
It's really a whack job of middle-class, working-class families across the state. So I think it's disingenuous for the governor's representative this morning to say that there's not going to be a tax increase, knowing full well that we're going to see taxes raised at the property level, at the grassroots level with school districts, and the harsh reality that many middle-class families will face with tuition issues, which at some point you will be forced to deal with that.
Each university president says it's simply not acceptable to pass on the cuts to students by way of tuition increases.
We would obviously not put the full burden of this cut, were it to come at this level, on our students. None of us have ever contemplated simply passing it on to our students. For Temple undergraduates, it would be a 44% tuition increase. I mean, that's just not to be contemplated.
Our tuition is already high. At Penn State, over 80% of our students are already receiving financial aid. Over 60% of our students are receiving loans. The average debt of our student at graduation is $31,000 a year. So if you hear comments to the effect of we're just going to add it onto our tuition, we can't do that.
This all comes at a time when graduating students are entering a bleak job market.
I'm deeply concerned about the cuts put forth by the governor related to institutions of higher education. The budget is much more than a rhetorical device. It is a policy direction. And what I am concerned is that one of the most pressing problems facing Pennsylvania families or your recent graduates is job.
And the question becomes, does this make good economic sense?
I look at this budget and I think it is the worst economic development strategy upon which we can embark. So I want to commend you for your efforts to already think about not passing on the prospective impacts of these deep cuts to students and their families.
The question remains, what will the final numbers be? It's a question that, at this point, nobody can answer. At the state capitol, I'm Don Rooney reporting.
And right now, administrators and students can only wait to see how much the final numbers will be. Let's take a minute to talk about Mansfield University, Lock Haven University, Kutztown University, Bloomsburg University, just off the top of my head, California University. They are big employers in the local community. I mean, they're having a huge impact as far as the bottom line economy is concerned, in addition to the education.
Extremely important. They provide a solid education. It really is Pennsylvania's high-quality option at a lower cost, the 14 state system universities. But beyond the issue of education, these institutions, the ones you just named, they're all significant economic drivers in their local communities. Folks work there, folks vend there, they do their business with the universities. So it's a lot of economic activity that occurs in those communities beyond just what's happening in the classroom.
You're talking about tuition increases. We'll say, let's pull out a figure of at least $2,000 possibly.
That's fine.
For many families, that's an extra $200 a month bill.
Absolutely.
So does that four-year college degree end it to five-year degree, and then in the long run you got to borrow more money, which puts you in debt?
Here is the problem, because it happens on a number of levels. What many of the presidents have said is that they'll have to deal with tuition increases, but they won't put the whole burden on just on tuition. They may have to cut back classes. They may have to close some campuses, all right? They may have to close some programs. So if you're a student and you need a particular class, and the class may have been offered 3 times during the course of a semester, well, it may get cut back to once during the course of a semester. Well, that one class may conflict with the other classes that you have, so you may not be able to take it during that semester. So what that does, you have to take it the next semester. And so it postpones and it makes longer the amount of time that you have to spend on that campus to get your degree. 4 years becomes 5 years. 5 years becomes 6 years. We already know that students are working during the summertime and during the school year, not already. Forget the increases. They're already working just to make ends meet. They'll have to double down on the amount of work they put in so that they can afford these new increases, and the potential added length of time that it will take for them to get all their classes for them to graduate.
Dr. Spanier,
which expands the amount of debt that they'll carry once they graduate.
Dr. Spanier hinted that there's a possibility, as you mentioned, that some of these branch campuses may have to close.
Yes.
Now, I'll just take one out of thin air. Penn State, Hazleton.
That's an example. Just as an example.
It's not. Nobody says it's going to happen. What happens to those students that may live in Hazleton and commute? They're able to live at home, yet they're going to Penn State. What happens to them?
They'll have to drive a longer distance. They'll have to make another choice. The option, again, in many of the regional campuses, this is the path to maybe, for example, getting to the main campus. All right, in Penn State situation.
In an affordable way.
In an affordable way.
Right.
They will wind up, because the distance may have to be longer. They may have to travel longer distance to get to a Penn State classroom. And it becomes very onerous, very hard, very difficult, and really, again, it's not fair. These students did not cause this problem. Working families did not cause this problem. The cold hard fact is the middle class income in the last 10 years has dropped 10%, not going up 10%. So folks were making more money 10 years ago than they're making now, and now they're asked to bear the brunt of dealing with this budget crisis. It's not fair. There's no shared sacrifice here, Bill.
Well, Pennsylvania has enjoyed great success in its efforts to form public-private partnerships designed to create business and job opportunities. We'd like to share a success story that involves a family business that employs hundreds of people. You are looking at highly skilled workers manufacturing state-of-the-art custom-built fire trucks right here in Pennsylvania. This is proof that manufacturing is alive and well in the Commonwealth. And this is not a big city operation. More than 650 workers build about 400 fire trucks a year at KME in the small town of Nesquehoning, Carbon County. It's the largest family-owned business of its kind in the nation, in business for more than 60 years. Senator John Yudichak is aboard a state-of-the-art airport crash truck. Vehicles like this are being sold all over the world.
You train the drivers, you go out, you got your team will go out, Kovach team.
We'll train on all operations of the vehicle.
He says the state must make every effort to keep manufacturing alive and well.
It's very important, first of all, of course, for those 700 jobs and what that means to Carbon County, what that means to Pennsylvania. I've toured the Kovach plant here at KME plant numerous times, and every time I'm impressed and inspired that Pennsylvanians are doing this tremendous work, manufacturing very complicated pieces of machinery, and they're selling their product all over the country.
The trucks built here in Carbon County end up in places like Los Angeles County, California, along with cities and towns across the nation. John Kovach owns and operates the company along with his family. He says the company's success depends on working closely with state government.
We can't survive without each other.
Issues involve everything from the environment to job training, and state government is involved in it all. One example of success is a program called CoStars.
CoStars is a state contract that we put all of our products and services on a state contract, and a municipality could buy without going to bid. They don't have to waste a lot of their money and a lot of their time writing bid specifications, evaluating bid specifications. They could simply go to the state bid under the CoStars program, select the vendor that they'd like it to be, whether that's me or one of my competitors, because we do have competitors on there. Select who's going to give them the best service, who has the best price, and simply order the vehicles. It's a great program.
Senator Yudichak says state government has a responsibility to help businesses retain jobs and create new jobs.
The Commonwealth, whether it's equipment loans, whether it's grants, whether it's helping these manufacturers. We have so few manufacturing left in the United States. We need to do whatever we can to make sure that these great companies built over the last 6 decades are going to be here for the next 6 decades, and that's why I'm here today to help continue that great tradition of the Kovach family and the Kovach companies.
Many of the employees have been here for decades. Wayne Zenner is one of the new guys on the block. He started working here 5 years ago and is happy to be home.
There was nothing here, to leave the area, you're born and raised here, you try and stay, close to home. You have family here, and it's nice that there's something close by, you can be proud to work at.
More than 650 Pennsylvania workers on the job in the manufacturing field, part of a 21st century success story. We're talking about 650 fine, family-sustaining jobs.
That's right.
You saw those people. We're talking highly skilled jobs.
It's incredible. Senator Yudichak looked really good trying to drive that truck. I think he was trying to drive it, but you know, his representation out there, talking to those business folks, letting us know exactly what's going on. Those trucks are utilized all over the world, all right? And they depend upon a little state support to help them through some difficult circumstances, environmental issues, all kinds of issues, and makes that a landmark, marquee business that we're all proud of. We should support them. We should not cut the business programs that can help put folks to work like what's happening in that program. 650 people.
And everything from job training to environmental issues with a stream that runs behind the plants to a need for tort reform. They're talking about that, but there's a bond there that, that can't be broken.
It's huge. It's important. Again, what you saw with that company is a small business, not so small with 650 people, but we like that. A family business doing good work, putting Pennsylvania on the map with the kind of product that it's producing. We should be encouraging that, trying to figure out ways we can replicate that and put Pennsylvania people to work. Guys like that family, that business, working families, teachers, average people all across the Commonwealth, students, didn't cause this problem that we're in. We should not, they should not have to bear the brunt of solving this budget crisis. It's got to be a shared sacrifice. And with the governor's budget proposal, it's not shared. It's not fair.
We've got about a minute left. What do you want the people of Pennsylvania to know about this budget process? What has you, number one, most concerned? Number two, what do you want to see happen?
Folks have got to engage. They've got to reach out to the governor, send a letter, send an email. They've got to reach out to their senators, their state legislators. Let folks know this budget process could occur very quickly, unlike years in the past. The leaders of both the House and the Senate have said publicly that they want the budget done by Memorial Day. Well, that's 30 days shorter than our deadline, which is June 30th. So if folks are not fully engaged, this thing could happen very quickly, and the people that did not cause this crisis could be the ones that are hurt the most in this process.
But people have got to pick up the phone now more than ever.
Exactly.
Pick up the phone, write a letter, whatever, email.
Send their email, pick up the phone, reach out to their elected official, let them know that it's not fair, that there has to be shared sacrifice. You just can't let certain folks off the hook. Give them tax breaks, let them run willy-nilly, make all the money that they want, and working families and teachers, students, poor people take the brunt.
On that note, we're going to wrap it up. Senator Vincent Hughes, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Bill.
And thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, we'd like to hear from you. You can start by visiting our website. There you see the address. Of course, you're always welcome to drop us a line, and that information appears next. Thanks for watching Capital Connection from Pennsylvania Senate Democrats.
People with disabilities may request a transcript of this program by calling area code 717-787-5166. The TTY number is 1-800-364-1581.